Every single pitch changes the scenario of the baseball game. We trust analytics more than we do our own eyes.
Really, the reaction doesn't really matter what you and I think. It's what the fans think.
A lot of things obviously aren't said on the radio that a lot of people would like to say. And we got enough artificial intelligence in baseball right now, and a lot of them went to Ivy League schools. No, the days of Cal Ripken are gone. The days of playing 162 games are gone, and I think that is a good thing. I don't want my guys playing every day. I want them well rested. Shoot, even a farmer gives his soil a year off.
The political correctness is driving me crazy.
The great managers are the ones that don't win games. They just don't lose games as often. But that's not the last time I'm going to correct you. That won't be the last time you're wrong about something. I'm going to let you know about that. I'm going to take you places that you wish you always went. How's that? And welcome to A View from Center Field. Welcome to A View from Center Field. My name is Andy Van Slyke, and we've had opening day, and we've had a couple days of the season, the 2018 baseball season at the major league level, and it has been very interesting in some ways, and the ball's flying out of the ballpark once again, and we also have 4 managers at the major league level who have never managed before. And a couple of them have already showed their colors about how they're going to manage this year in 2018. And unfortunately, it's our first Sunday of Major League Baseball, and we have to, for some reason, listen to Alex Rodriguez do Sunday Night Baseball with a girl who's never played anything but softball. And her name is Mendoza. Now think about this, Rob. My partner in crime is Rob Raines. Rob, welcome.
Welcome, Andy. How are you?
I'm doing fine. And Rob, you know how I feel about this one.
I do.
I mean, let me ask a serious question. Can't we do better than this? Can we not do better than Mendoza and Rodriguez in the booth?
I would hope so. You know, I don't know what they're looking for particularly, and I suspect probably what ESPN is looking for is a different demographic than you and I fall into. So I don't think we're probably necessarily the right guys.
What demographic is that? People who love girls softball? Nobody is sitting home on a Sunday night thinking about, oh, she played in the Olympics. Oh, she played with Jenny Finch. She played softball. Now, where's her credibility on Major League Baseball? It drives me nuts. And then we have Alex Rodriguez, who only a couple of years ago was a pariah in Major League Baseball. He sued Major League Baseball. He sued the Players Association. He sued the New York Yankees team doctor. And he hired private investigators to dig up information on Major League Baseball officials, including the now commissioner, Rob Manfred of Major League Baseball. It just boggles my mind that he is on this rehab assignment of his own personal volition, and ESPN has fallen right into it.
It seems to me it's kind of, and I'll take that part of it first, which I think is more germane to my point, is that and you and I have seen this, and not just in sports, not just in broadcasting, but we're a celebrity culture. I mean, we're a culture of people that like celebrities. We like famous people, and I think that's what ESPN is preaching to. They're trying to hire famous people to think that they'll attract an audience, and I don't think it's going to work. I mean, to me, I tune into a baseball game because I want to see those two teams playing on the field. I could care less who the announcers are.
Well, isn't the people who watch Sunday Night Baseball the purest anyways? I mean, they're not watching Netflix. They're not watching, some other TV show on ABC or NBC. These people who tune in to Major League Baseball on a Sunday night, for a lot of guys, especially, this might be their only night to watch a Major League Baseball game because they're working and they got families and it's the weekend and they get to see teams they might not normally see because it's a national game.
But I think that's part of the argument, though, is I think that they're trying to attract people who may not be your traditional baseball fan.
I guess. I'm not trying to throw stones here in a glass house. Trust me, I got plenty of things that as in my own life, but it just boggles my mind. It seems that this whole idea of Alex being part of Major League Baseball, being in the booth and talking about the game, I don't want to say it's hypocritical, but gosh, he did everything he could to undermine the game just a few years ago.
It seemed like a strange hire. I'll grant you that. That just.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, and I'm not saying, I'm not just putting. And to me, I mean, there's some former players that I think are terrific analysts. I think John Smoltz.
There's so many guys out there who could do a terrific job. Who have an unbelievable track record, but it just seems this is sort of his rehab tour, in my opinion. He has done everything he can to rehab his reputation. I call it the beginning of the Hall of Fame time for him. He's going to try to do everything he can to try to milk this thing as long as he can to try to get himself in the Hall of Fame.
It is going to be an interesting case when he does become eligible for the ballot. I mean, we've seen Barry Bonds, we've seen Roger Clemens come up on the ballot now the last several years, and get a decent amount of support, but certainly not enough support to get in. And I don't know what's going to happen when A-Rod's turn comes here. 4 years from now.
Well, his last season was 16, so it would be 4 years from now.
21, right? Yeah, 5 years after you're done playing. So,
right. Well, I don't know, and I mean, nothing against Jessica Mendoza, but gosh darn it! I mean, first of all, I don't want to listen to a woman tell me something about baseball, which I think, if we are all honest, most guys who sit at home are going, really? I mean, she's going to tell me, she's going to tell some guy that, this is what he did. He pulled his hands in and, he got the head, he got the head out. And I mean,
I know the Yankees have a female broadcaster for their teams that I just have not heard enough to comment on her because I don't listen to the Yankees local broadcast, but she's been doing it for a long time. I do know that. So she must be pretty good at it or she wouldn't still have that job.
Yes. And I actually
heard Allman, I think is her name.
Yes, she is. Actually, I have to admit, I do kind of like some of the things she has to say. So maybe there is a place for it, but when on a national stage, I don't know. It'd be like me, I like cheerleading. If I had a daughter who was cheerleading, all of a sudden I go to ESPN's, I'm an expert on cheerleading, I guess.
I think you have a different perspective, though, and I don't care. I don't think this necessarily applies to just who, one individual particular broadcaster or even one network or even one, the fact that it's a national audience. You have the perspective, having played the game as long as you did at such a high level, having coached the game. I think your attitude and what you're looking for in a broadcast is probably different than.
Well, it is different. Here's the thing. I'll listen. I listened to it sometimes last year, and a lot of times I had to turn it off. I would say that's not true. That's not true.
I know a lot of broadcasts I listen to, though.
Well, I know. I do say that about sometimes when guys will say too, but the level of making up something was just it was at a level which I couldn't listen anymore. So. And I'd much rather listen to someone. Well, enough of that. But you get know how I feel about it, and it's just the culture we live in. You're right. ESPN is gone on a politically correct train, and they're not getting off it because, they went down that road a couple of years ago, and they are full steam ahead. Just look at look at some of the people who have been fired lately for just making personal comments about, something going on in our culture. And all of a sudden the guy gets fired. The greatest example is who? Rob?
What's that? I'm not sure. You kind of lost me there. I'm not sure where you're going with that.
No, I was just saying that, they've gone down this politically correct train and they're not getting off it. It's full steam ahead for them.
Right.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. That's they've chosen that, and the market has bared that they have suffered because of it.
I think that's true.
Here's my point. Here's my point. If you had another Tony Kubek in the booth instead of Jessica Mendoza, I think the ratings would be higher. That's all I'm saying.
I loved it when it was Dan Shulman and John Kruk. I thought they were a terrific duo together.
Kruk was great.
I love John Kruk.
Kruk was great. He brought fun in the booth. He brought honesty to the booth, and why he's maybe did they kick him out? Did he choose that? What was that?
I don't think they just rehired. I don't think he was rehired. I mean, I think they sent him to a different role, and I think he just gradually kind of walked away.
Oh, he was great. He was terrific. And speaking of the Yankees, today, well, it would be the Yankees' third game against Toronto. Did you happen to see what happened up in Toronto?
I did not. Sorry to.
Oh well, let me tell you what happened.
Tell me.
We had a lead by the Yankees, and it was second and third. The Yankees were clinging to a one-run lead in the eighth inning, and Robinson was on the mound with an open base, and Josh Donaldson was at the plate, and who was on deck? Justin Smoke. So Boone signaled, put four fingers up, and they let Josh Donaldson walk to first base. And on a 3-2 count, Justin Smoke hit a ball to center field. And the Yankees lose. The Yankees lose 7-4.
Wow.
Yep. And here's my point about analytics. I saw the play. I didn't see the play live. If I saw it, I would have came to the same conclusion. Josh Donaldson, who has struggled physically all spring, he's got a bad shoulder, was 2 for 13 in the series. I'm sorry, I walked the guy. First of all, it's right on right. But the analytics, here we go again. The analytics was, and this was the justification after the game, was that Justin Smoke was 0 for 5 with 3 strikeouts against Robinson.
5 at bats, and they made a decision like that.
That's my point. And here's what I guarantee you we're going to see more and more of this, that the situation of the game, I don't care what the analytics say, the situation of the game, the way a guy's been swinging the bat, Josh Donaldson was not tearing up Yankee pitching. They know he's hurt. He's physically not back to 100%. And you have an open base. To me, I've been in that situation, and I can tell you it's a lot harder to hit with an open base, man at second and third, than it is to hit with the bases loaded. Because you know that the pitcher has to come right at you. He has to throw strikes. Now, I'm sorry, you don't give yourself any chance whatsoever to have the guy chase a bad pitch.
Yeah.
When you have the bases loaded. And you 3-2, after he throw him a bunch of curveballs, there's no way he can throw him another curveball because he certainly doesn't want to walk into the tie and run. It was just striking to me that in today's game that's what we're going to see, I think, more and more and more of.
I think
when we go the analytics to make the decision instead of trusting your instincts and your eyes. Analytics again. Analytics, Rob. I get them. I get it, but they don't tell the story. Well, they are history.
Right. But here's the thing. I think
they don't tell current history.
Here's the thing. I think why people do that though, and I think it's a mistake. But I do think it's, especially in this age when you're having a lot of more managers who come up who are kind of hired for that reason because they are able to use that information and kind of process that and fit it into their game plan. It's because if it doesn't work out, you have an excuse. Here's why here's why I did that. And you can't just say, well, that was the way I felt. It was a gut move. It didn't work. Sorry. You don't have managers who want to admit that anymore. They want to be able to say, well, I did it because the analytics told me to do this. I'm not saying it's right, but I think that's what happens. And I do think this too. I think especially when we saw this the opening weekend and the Cardinals dropped their first couple of games. I don't think there's any question to me that the results of the first couple of games of a baseball season are so blown out of proportion and so magnified that it's kind of mind-boggling to me that you're so overreacting to something that happens in a 2-game span that if it was 2 games in the middle of July or the middle of August, you wouldn't even pay any attention to it.
Correct. Well, that may be true, but when a manager comes out and says that the numbers said,
well, that's
for me
point.
to do
that's
this.
My point.
Instead of look at I mean, when you were covering the St. Louis Cardinals back when Whitey was making decisions, you think Whitey ever said, "Well, the number said"?
No.
Whitey said, "I just thought it was the best matchup. I went with it."
Right. I like that matchup better than this other matchup.
That's right. I mean, he didn't need numbers. I mean, he did his homework before the game. There's no question about that.
Yeah, I mean, he knew what the numbers were.
But Whitey never had a pad. He never had a sheet of paper. And let me tell you something. He did something right with a bullpen not nearly as dangerous as the New York Yankees bullpen right now, and never lost a lead in 1985 after the 8th inning.
Yep.
Is that just baseball smarts? What is that? And he did it with 11 pitchers, not 13, too. And here's another thing philosophically that I absolutely believe in, that Whitey preached over and over again. The less decisions he makes, the better he manages.
Right.
The less he has to go to that mound, the better off he is.
Well, that's what
he
always said about Bruce Sutter. You know, he said every time I put Bruce Sutter in a game, I didn't have to worry about whether we won or lost because I know I'd made the right decision. Would it always work out? No. But he said I didn't have to worry about whether it was the right decision or not.
Right. You go with the best, and you go. I mean, my point is Robinson. I mean, he's supposed to be one of your best pitchers, late inning pitchers, and if he can't get Donaldson out, why are you worried about Justin Smoke? Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't care what the numbers say. Get this guy out. You're a right-handed pitcher. Get the right-handed hitter out.
Well, it's not like Josh Donaldson's a 700 hitter with 1,000 home runs.
I haven't seen one yet. I have not seen one yet.
No. So what else did you think about on the opening weekend? What caught your eye?
Gosh, how about the manager in Philadelphia?
He had an interesting weekend as a first-time manager.
That would be an understatement. You used 21 pitchers in 2 games,
including an outfielder in the third game of the season because he'd already blown out his bullpen.
Yes,
and he called in a relief pitcher who wasn't even started to warm up yet.
That's true too. How about that one? Have you ever? I've
never heard. The only time that possibly happened was when they had the wrong signal at Tony La Russa in the World Series in 2011. Remember when they brought Lance Lynn in or somebody else, and they brought in the wrong guy because the bullpen phones weren't working or something to that effect, and he didn't realize that he was the guy that was coming in.
That's true.
But he hadn't warmed up. The umpire had to give the pitcher time to warm up, even though it was not.
He didn't have to
because he didn't want to hurt the guy. And they told,
that's not.
And Major League Baseball actually defended the umpire, and Jerry Lane was the umpire and said he did the right thing. But if you do it again, we're not going to give the guy time to warm up.
Well, then that's not the right thing. Yeah. Either it's the wrong thing or it's the right thing. I mean, that's another thing.
You don't want to hurt the guy though. It's not his fault. The pitcher.
Yeah, but so next time it's probably never going to happen again. Kapler's managing. That's probably the first time it's ever happened in the history of the game.
I would imagine, yeah. I would imagine. I don't remember.
I can't ever imagine that's ever happened before. But as much as he changes pitchers, are they going to even have enough time to warm up anyways? He's going to have – I mean, instead of having – Philadelphia might be the first stadium that has 4 mounds in the bullpen.
He's going to need 20 pitchers on his staff instead of 13.
Yeah, but think about it. You only have 2 mounds in the bullpen. Right. He's going to ask to have some of the seats taken out and have 2 more pitching mounts put in.
It's interesting.
So you can warm up 4. So you can warm up 4 guys at once.
It's interesting when you get guys who have never managed before and give them a major league managerial job. And I know some of them are former players, and most of them probably are former players. So you think they probably know the game, and I suppose some of them have probably even coached at some point. But I don't know how you get experience without experience. You know what I mean? I don't know how, it just doesn't seem like they promote very many minor league managers to big league managers' jobs. They become coaches or something. But, and you've coached at the big league level. And managing, it almost seems to me like now it's more of it's more managing people kind of stuff and knowing your stats and stuff. And the fact that you haven't managed before, it just doesn't seem like it's a factor in some of these decisions. And I think it should be. I mean, I'd rather have an experienced manager out there than a rookie manager. Or at least the guy's coached, a few years in the big leagues or managed in the minor leagues or something.
Right. Exactly. Well, why do you think Jim Leyland was instantaneously a good manager?
Because he had years of experience.
He had 17 years in
managing
minor
and the coaching for Tony La Russa in the big leagues before that.
Exactly. He was more than ready. I'm sorry. I mean, I always love when they talk about a new manager and how intelligent he is and how much he communicates with the players and how much he understands analytics. But can he manage the game? Can he manage a baseball game?
All the things you've got.
That's the only. Here's the thing. To me, that is the most important thing. Can you manage the baseball game?
Well, look at how many managers get hired and from their first job as a manager and have no success and get fired, and then they come back and get another job or even 2 more jobs later on and become terrific managers. So some of them are headed to the Hall of Fame. Whitey Herzog was hired, and fired a couple of times. And Terry Francona has gone through other jobs. So I mean, you have to. It's almost on the job training, no matter how much experience you've got. AJ Hinch, is now in his second managerial job. And won the World Series last year with the Astros after getting fired in Arizona. So
yeah, he was there briefly though. So yep, you're right. But it's another new wave of the game, and it's going
to be interesting to see how he develops as a manager. And Kapler, and some of the other guys too. I mean, Boone, with the Yankees, some of the other guys that have not managed before. Interesting to watch them and see how they go. And I think too, don't you also think it depends a little bit on the expectations of the team? Like Aaron Boone is probably in a much more stressful situation than with a lot shorter leash, I think, than Gabe Kapler, because the Yankees' expectations are so much higher than the Phillies.
Well, I think the Phillies have no expectations. I think they would like to compete, but the learning curve for him is definitely has started. And look at it. The good news is it can't get any worse. He cannot make a worse decision than he made. But there's something going on in Philadelphia though that I wish I knew what was going on, because I don't think anybody in their right mind would use that many pitchers. That many pitchers in 2 games.
Well,
you know what I'm saying? Something's coming from the front office, some kind of new philosophy, and
the other thing is,
there's a new analytical theory that you use a pitcher for an inning or 2 and you get them out. That you actually start your best pitcher in the first inning, because they say statistically you lose. Statistically, obviously, you win or lose whoever gets the lead first.
Well, and the other part of that is that there's now a big trend in baseball to say that a starting pitcher can't go through a lineup 3 times. They go through the lineup twice and they try to get him out because they don't think he's going to have success against the lineup the third time through.
Is that true?
I think it varies depending on the pitcher.
It depends on the pitcher.
There's probably some guys it's true for.
You can't say that about Justin Verlander. You couldn't say it about Bob Gibson.
So that's another way that the analytics have kind of are directing managers and coaches with their decisions, rather than just watching the game and seeing if this guy's on fire. I'm going to keep him out there.
Mm-hmm.
That and the 100 pitch count, the pitch counts that have taken over everything. So a guy can't possibly throw more than 100 pitches in a game, or his arms can fall off.
That's not true.
It's not.
It's not true at all.
We're just we're babying everybody anymore.
Well, the pace. The interesting thing about what happened in that Philadelphia game, that Major League Baseball seems to be so concerned about the pace of play, and yet this particular pitching change, it went over on time, and there's supposed to be. What is the repercussions, anyways, if you don't get your pitcher in on time? What is the penalty? Sure. That the umpire, points to the pitcher and says, "You got to throw the first pitch." He doesn't care how many warm-up pitches you've had. My point being, let's say the guy's warmed up in the bullpen, and they signal for him. Okay, he's got so much time to come in the game. What is it? 2 minutes and what? Something seconds.
Yeah, I think it's like 2.5. I think it's like 2.5. Yeah, I think.
Okay, so let's say he in the course of going from giving the pitcher the bullpen catcher the ball on his way in, let's say something happens and he doesn't get to the mound until 2 minutes and 15 seconds. There's 15 seconds left on the mound. Pay any scenario you want. Maybe he's got to go to the bathroom, or maybe he tripped and fell and he cut his lip or whatever. Does that mean he's only got 15 seconds to get ready to throw the first pitch?
Probably technically, but I bet they give him a lot more than that.
Of course they would. That's my point. I guess it's more of a suggestion than a rule, is what it comes down to. Yeah. And I get down to my premise. You want to shorten games, eliminate the pitching staff. That's all you have to do. Eliminate the 11 pitchers. And you got the issue solved. And that's another thing. Why have two guys in your bullpen that you don't want to bring in the game anyways? Why are they there?
In case you play 17 innings?
I mean, you're trying to tell me you got 13 really great pitchers? I don't think so. I'm sorry. I don't.
How do you think baseball liked the pace of play of that first game in Detroit this year between them, Pittsburgh and Detroit? The 10-10 affair, and then the 17-inning game in Miami against the Cubs.
Well, it's unfortunate that those two games came right out of the gate, because at some point they're going to raise the issue of trying to fix extra inning games too, and that'll be another dagger that'll hurt the game.
Certainly it will. It's going to hurt the minor league game. They're trying to do it this year in the minor leagues. And I don't think it's going to fly. I mean, I know they're going to do it, and most people don't really care about who wins and loses a minor league game. I mean, the players do. And they want to win. They get a ring if they win the championship, but there really is very limited people who care about whether the minor league team wins or loses.
Can you imagine the scenario, an extra inning game, 7th game of the World Series, and that rule's in place?
10th inning.
Okay, it's a tie game, and that's going to be decided on. You gave somebody a double when they haven't earned it. What if I managed better than the other manager? What if I was able to save my best pitcher for extra innings and you weren't able to? It penalizes the crafty manager.
Yeah, I think so.
Doesn't it? It penalizes the team that didn't use up his bullpen, or the other manager who overmanaged during the game. Because that's certainly my point being is the luckiest manager in the last 100 years is sitting in Chicago with a World Series ring, the way he managed that World Series 2 years ago.
He's there because of a rain delay.
I mean, that was one of the worst managerial moves in the history of the World Series.
They only won because of the rain delay.
You're probably right. You're absolutely probably right about that.
Divine intervention. Hope the Cubs win there.
Yeah. Well.
So, anybody caught your eye individually so far in the first weekend of the season? Who do you pay attention to?
Well, yeah, I tell you who really caught my eye was Hicks for the Cardinals when he came in and averaged 100 miles an hour on his fastball.
Yeah.
I hope they give that kid a chance to be an 8th or 9th inning pitcher before the year's over.
Well, it's going to be the 8th inning anyway. If they're signing,
because his stuff
signing Greg Holland is probably going to make him the 9th inning guy. But I think there's a good shot you'll see Hicks in high leverage roles in the 7th and 8th inning, the way that they're talking.
Well, and the fact that he's 20 or what is he, 21? Irrelevant to me. We had a guy when I was coaching in Detroit, Joel Zamayo, came out of the bullpen. He pitched an A-ball the year before. He was throwing 103 to 105 miles an hour. And who was our closer? That Jim Leland put him right in the 9th inning. I think it might have been opening day, second day. And all the smart people who run the game today would tell a guy today not to do that. This is in 2006 when the Cardinals were lucky enough to beat the Detroit Tigers that year. Actually, they outplayed us for 5 games, but Joel Zamayo was our best closer that year, and he, Jim Leland did not hesitate put him in the 9th inning to shut a game down. He was our 8th inning guy and our 9th.
I do think pitchers have an advantage over hitters as far as it's coming in to that situation at a young age without a lot of experience. I mean, Hicks has pitched 34 games in his professional career coming into this season, only 27 innings above low Class A. But as we know, the plate doesn't change. The same plate's the same height, same width, as it is in A ball as it is in the big leagues. You're still throwing a ball from 60 feet 6 inches to the plate. That doesn't change. So the only thing that changes is the quality of the hitters. But if you're good enough and you've got good enough stuff,
that's when you throw like he does, his stuff plays.
That's what I'm trying to say. Is I think a pitcher can make that adjustment for going from low A ball in less than a year to the big leagues a lot easier than a hitter can do it. That's what I'm trying to say. You don't see that kind of jump very often from a hitter.
Well, that's yes. Albert Pujols is probably the one guy that made the biggest jump.
And I don't remember what level Bryce Harper was at when he came to the Nationals because he was such a young player too. I don't remember how much experience he had above the low levels of the minor leagues, but you don't see it very often.
Mm-hmm. Okay, up in Chicago, Jason Hayward, unfortunately, is going to have the dubious distinction of maybe being the highest paid player in the history of the game. And the Chicago Cubs are going to have to eat it. The question is Darvish going to be? Are we going to be talking about Darvish in the same way a year or two from now?
I didn't like that signing for the Cubs. I mean, I thought it was a lot of money, and I just don't think he's that that kind of pitcher. I mean, I think he came over here and has a couple of good years at Texas, but I was really hoping that the Cardinals wouldn't sign him, even though there are a lot of people talking about the fact that they needed to go out and sign a starting pitcher, and his name came up. But, I thought the Cubs gave him way too much money for, as good as I think he is.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I see some of the quotes that his teammates are trying to cover up for him. His performance in postseason last year was enough for me to say, nah, I don't want that guy. And they were saying that he was too anxious to have a good debut, that he was missing his spots and he couldn't get a slider over. He was over anxious. Well, you know what? Maybe that little part of postseason, those few games where he couldn't do anything with the baseball that he wanted to do, is a true testament of what he's going to be. I hope not for his, obviously for his career. I don't want to see anybody fail, but after the performance his opening day performance in last year's postseason, we might be looking at a trend. And that's an unfortunate trend for him.
It's interesting. Teams, I saw that the Arizona Diamondbacks asked for release waivers on a guy named Yasmani Tomas that they signed out, a Cuban player that they gave like $60 million to it. We saw the Red Sox a few years ago have to keep a guy in the minor leagues, Castillo, that they had played, $60-something million for. When you're trying to sign guys, and I know Darvish had already had some years in the big leagues, but when he originally signed and came over from Japan, and now Ohtani's the new guy to watch this year. It just seems like there's such an open question. Teams are paying a lot of money for some of these guys. Some of them make it, some of them don't. So I just don't know. I know baseball is becoming a lot more global game. There's a lot more people playing it at a high level around the world, not just in Latin America, not just in the U.S. But, seems to me that teams are going to be a little kind of hesitant about spending a lot of money on a guy that's still unproven at this level of play.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate that some of these, just because you've had success maybe in Cuba or Japan, Major League Baseball has to figure out a way of saying, all right, you want to come to the United States, that's fine. You want to play for us, that's fine. But man, to start giving up, tens of millions of dollars to guys who have not proven themselves at the major league level, it just kind of rubs me the wrong way. It's this is our game. Kids up here play growing up, and now we have a draft where if you're if you're a really high draft player, mm-hmm. your first round, second round, you don't get nearly the money that some of these guys are getting coming to the United States to play.
Well, they have instituted, changed the international signing rules now. So the younger players, I think there is more of a cap on how much they can get. But if you're an uncapped player, like Ohtani was still a capped player, so he didn't get very much. But like Darvish, when he came over, and some of those other guys, the older Cuban players, there's no cap on them. Yeah, they can get whatever the market will bear.
Right. That's right. That's right.
It's the ultimate free agent, kind of thing.
It is. They're going to have to. I think they're going to have to figure out a way to that it's just an unfair process. And I'm not saying there's jealousy there, but it just doesn't seem fair to me. But
well, it just seems like there's so much money, and this may be a topic for another day, but there's so much money in the game that teams can just blow that kind of money, and some teams more than others, and not really have the repercussions because of it. But yet, and I know this is just got passed by Congress the other day, that the spending thing that's going to limit the number of amount of money you can pay minor league players. It just seems to me that baseball does a horrible job in taking care of the minor league players, and that there's more than enough money to go around to take care of those guys and give them a decent living wage, and not have them have to survive on peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and sleep on air mattresses on the floor because they can't afford to have anything else. And that's right. Not right. I don't think.
No, I think it's terrible. I went through it. In some ways, I get it. You're going to separate the men from the boys, the guys that are willing to pay a price to get to the big leagues. It's really interesting. At the Major League Baseball has instituted all this new way of thinking. We instituted analytics into the game. We got replay, and now we don't have to intentionally walk somebody by throwing the ball. You say, okay, go to first base. It's okay. Go ahead, run over there. It's all yours now. Even though there have been games decided by that play itself. Correct. So they've eliminated that. We have domestic abuse policies finally at the major league level, which are arbitrary, and we got to talk about that someday. How they arbitrarily decide Sano doesn't have to get suspended, but other players have gotten suspended. I think the commissioner has too much power in that decision, and yet they haven't modernized their thinking about what it means to the humanity part of the minor league system. It's almost inhumane the way they treat minor league players. Because
not everybody's a first-round draft pick. I mean, like you mentioned a while ago, if you're a first-round draft pick, you get a decent-sized signing bonus. You can, afford to live off that for, the 3-4 years you might be in the minor leagues and be okay. But the kid that was the 30th round draft pick or an undrafted free agent, they got no money. If they're lucky, they got $1,000 in a plane ticket to whatever team they were assigned to start. And if they don't have any other, financial support from their parents or whatever, they're going to, really have to struggle. And is that the way you really want to develop your players, by making them struggle like that? Worried about money, worried about, getting a decent meal to eat.
And we're not talking about having them. This is no, being set for life situation. No, I'm not even saying that.
$1,000 a month.
But it's sort of like you're working at McDonald's for 3 or 4 years. It's basically what it comes down to.
Even less than that. When you figure out
it is less than
and I know that there's been lawsuits about this, and I know it's been a topic of conversation. I mean, the people have done the math and broke it down. I mean, it's like $2 an hour or something for the amount of time that they really have to spend working out and practicing and playing the games and everything.
And the off season too. I mean, we're asking these athletes to take care of their bodies, and they can't even feed their bodies correctly in the off season. So,
and as I said before, the biggest part that rubs me the wrong way is they're acting like there's not enough money to do this, and there is. There's more than enough money in the Major League Baseball to take care of these guys.
There's no question. There's plenty of money. That's not the issue. Well, there should be more money this year because player salaries are down. So there's got to be more money somewhere.
It's in the owner's pocket.
Yeah, and
they're getting all the new TV money too.
I know, and all the money from the internet. Do you realize that all that MLB.com, that the players get none of that? Everything that's generated.
I didn't realize that.
That's strictly Major League Baseball money, and they will never tell you how much it is.
Well, they sold part of it to Disney last year, and every team got a $50 million check.
Who did?
Every team they're part of the contract, because they had put money into it to start it and all that kind of stuff. And when it got sold last year, I know every team got a check for $50 million.
Oh, that's pretty good. I guess you can't help that. You can't help the minor league system with that kind of money. I guess you're right. It doesn't seem to be enough to go around. So.
Or to pay your coaches, minor league coaches, a decent wage.
How
about those guys?
How about the big league coaches?
Well, they at least get the pension money, right? I mean, they at least get
people would be shocked how little Major League baseball coaches make. Shocked. By the time you try to find an apartment, rent, some teams make you get your own car. You try to have your kids, all your coaches have families. Try to fly your wife in and out of town or whatever the case may be. It's a break even for a lot of guys.
Right.
It's a break even. And they're at the top of their profession and they can't even save money. It's a joke. I don't know what it's amazing when you look around. You got college basketball coaches, assistant coaches, assistant football coaches, NBA coaches, NFL coaches making millions of dollars, and these guys are making 100,000, 125,000 at the most. A lot of them are, and that's just not right.
Yeah,
it's not right, and it sounds like a lot, but when you're traveling and you're paying and tipping and your clubhouse dues, and it's tough. It's tough. Anyways, I have to ask you a question. Give me a surprise team that you think is going to do better than a lot of people picked. I've got mine. You saw the Mets. Are the Mets one of the teams that are going to be better than people predicted?
Yeah, I think so. If they stay healthy, I mean, if you got Syndergaard and DeGrom, and if Harvey can bounce back at all, and Matz is the starting pitchers, I think that they're going to. And I like their offense. I like the Todd Frazier signing. I think they're going to score runs. Cespedes is healthy. I mean, like every team, you say with every team, they have to stay healthy. But I think I think the Mets are going to give the Nationals a run for that National League East title. I really do.
Well, I don't know about that. Hey, here's the thing about the Mets, though. You got to remember, if they fail, everybody say, "Well, they're too old," And if they stay in it, they'll say, "Well, look at all the experience they got." So it really comes down to whether some of the older guys, if Frazier can stay healthy, Gonzalez, can he produce again? Cespedes, he doesn't move. He's a left fielder now. He doesn't move like he used to. He's no gazelle, but they certainly have enough pitching to keep themselves in there. No question about it. I'm gonna pick the Twins. I think the Twins.
I was going to say that I like them too.
The Twins are an interesting ball club. They really are. And
they were a wild card team last year.
Yep. And they got better. And they got, I think, one of the emerging stars, if he can figure out how to put the ball in play more, because he struck out 150 times last year. That Brian Buxton, the center fielder.
Yep.
He's an athlete. And,
really want to go above?
Yep. And maybe, people are going to argue with me, he probably is a better center fielder than Mike Trout as far as range and speed. He runs the bases. He's been rated as the best base runner at the major league level, which is quite an honor. Nobody really paid attention to base running, but base running is like defense. If you do it well, you win ball games. Here's something. Here, I'm going to give you an analytical stat that I absolutely believe in, and I can't believe that I believe in it because I don't believe in most of them. But I'm going to tell you anyways. Okay. Do you realize that when you, as a team defensively, have less errors than your opposing team, your winning percentage is .640.
I would say you probably have a pretty good winning percentage. I wouldn't have known what the number was.
.640.
Well, what's a simple reason for that? Because you're not giving the team extra outs.
You exactly, and not only that, you're shortening your bullpen because every time you make an error, you don't make an out. You lengthen the game pitch wise, and the more pitches you throw, the greater chance of the ball going all over the wall, and run scoring. The less pitches you throw, the better chance you have of winning a ball game.
So what do you think about the week ahead? What is there going to be anything that you pay attention to? We kind of watch some of these new managers and see if they make some adjustments or what. One thing we didn't talk about earlier in the show, Andy, was about the fact that we played a lot of games in rain and cold and windy weather.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we got to come up with a way to start this season a little bit later so the conditions are a little bit better. If you don't happen to play in a dome or in a warm weather city.
So what do you think? What do you think the solution is? Start spring training earlier than we have?
I would start spring training later, and I would start the season later. And I would either try to figure out a way to go back to a 154-game schedule or try to figure out a way to play more doubleheaders.
Well, doubleheaders would be okay with me, but I can't see the schedule going back to 154 games, Rob. It's you're talking about a lot of money in 8 games in the Major League Baseball. That's a lot of money. And it always comes down to money. I mean, just about every issue that we talk about. I mean, when you think about it, why is the game being sped up? Money. Trying to get the game to be sped because of money. I mean, everything is always predicated on money, and that's the unfortunate part. There was a time in baseball when it wasn't so prevalent. You know, I don't want to go back to the good old days with all that stuff, but it's what drives the industry is money. It drives our culture. It drives our thinking, and unless money becomes not as relevant and as important as it's been the last 20 years. I mean, you think about all the salaries that the guys are making, the amount of money the owners are making now, it's never going to go back to 154 games.
Right.
So the only solution is maybe expanding the roster and getting less off days so you can somehow integrate what hockey does. When if you can put a guy on a DL for 1 or 2 days, he's hurt, just needs some time where he doesn't do any baseball activity. And unless they come up with some ingenious idea like that, we're not going back to 162 games.
Right, but I just think it's unfair to expect guys to go out there and play in 37-degree weather, in the high wind conditions when they haven't played in that, all month of March in Florida and Arizona.
Well, you're right. It is tough. I mean, I've tried it many seasons. It's no fun for the fans, obviously, and the working conditions for the players are horrible. But look at what we do now in baseball. We've had last few years, because of the length of postseason. Now we've had some issues with weather in postseason.
Right, that's true. That's kind of what I'm getting at. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I think that's you just were playing with fire sometimes when you start games, and this year starting on March 29th, earliest ever, and you're playing games in New York and Pittsburgh and Detroit or
Yeah, and another strange thing is why wasn't everybody playing this last Sunday? I mean, why were there only 12 games instead of 15 games? I don't get that.
No, that doesn't make any sense either.
On Easter Sunday, that didn't make any sense to me. So, I mean, if you have an opportunity, here's my point: you schedule them as much as you can in April, and hopefully you get them all in.
And schedule day games, I guess, too. At least better than night games.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, Rob, it's been an interesting few days, opening days in baseball, and I'm sure we'll have many topics to talk about. I got a few on our next podcast that I'll talk about. I like to tackle that domestic issue policy, domestic abuse policy, Major League Baseball. So maybe we'll talk about that next time, and we'll see how our new managers are doing.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch and see.
Yeah, let's see if some of these guys rely on their instincts a little more than the analytics, in which we talked about earlier. So
I look forward to it.
Yeah, good. Rob, appreciate it. That's Rob Raines, my partner in crime. I'm Andy Van Slyke, and this has been A View from Center Field. Listen again. We'll be back to you soon.